have 10 to 15 minutes, and then we'll take a break before the final plenary session. So please raise your hand if you have questions to ask to Shin. We'll try to reconnect with Ned in a minute. Question?
No question.
No question?
Yeah. All answered by AI.
Yes. Well.
问一下水月生教授，但是关于这个咱们在这个日本的这种所谓的这个非主流化的一些这个卡哇伊的一些文化的一些这个互联网方面的一些新的这些契机，它又怎么进入主流的这样的一个方式？那中间到底有哪个关键的时间点或者转折点，然后出现了这样的一种这种主流化的，而且甚至是另一个转折点，就是或者是因为在整个亚洲地区甚至全世界的这个转折点，在这两个转折，一个日本国内，一个是国际的这个转折点。我想问一下这个。第二个问题，我想问一下我们范教授，那就是我们在设计和这个人工智能这个过程中，我想你谈得非常深入，关于这个。那我想就是说，在中国和美国之间，可不可以有一个简单的对比？我们来看这两个进程到底是什么样一个情况？谢谢。
Okay, so the kawaii culture in English, the cute culture, was mainly immersed in the media culture in Japan and the East Asian area in the 1990s. And yes, that is in one way we can say that the kawaii culture, cute culture, is a kind of subculture or popular culture, but also it has a kind of the historical background, like your presentation in the commerce in the Song Dynasty. So you remember that in Japan we have the kind of the habit to make the plants smaller one, like bonsai, small plants. Or the Japanese are very good at making things in a very small size and cozy things. That kind of tradition is long time survived in Japan. The other one is that the cute culture is fundamentally connected to the matter of the anthropomorphization of something. To make object as make some eyes or mouth or something like that is that put the artificial intelligence or artificial object or other natural object, try to make them as something like a human being. So and it means a shrinking culture, making things smaller. This kind of culture, and also make all the things as a kind of anthropomorphized. I think it's very much connected to the animism in Japan, and these two are long time, existing in Japan. And this kind of activities are connected to the, mobile culture or anime or those kind of things in Japan, probably from 70s to 80s, but it was, exported unconsciously or unintentionally to the Korea, Taiwan, China, or other places, mainly in the 90s. So, for example, emoji, karaoke, those are the Japanese words. Pikachu is also the Japanese word. And that's now disseminated all over the world. And Japanese kind of very weird subcultural activities are now standardized under the platform or on the platform of the media, worldwide media. That's the things I can say. Thank you.
Sure. Okay, I'm going to answer in English so that the other speaker could sort of understand what I'm saying. The question you asked is to compare between the United States and China's development in terms of design and artificial intelligence. Well, first give a quick sort of story. In 2015, there was a conference on artificial intelligence, which asks the scholars that when do they think the machine can beat a human being in Go play, right? 围棋. And those are top tier scholars, and they anticipate at 2015 that it won't be able to beat human until 2027. Obviously, we all know what happened in 2016, right? So 2016 with this AlphaGo and human just got trashed. So this is exactly what's happening right now. It's really a global phenomenon. It's not China or United States. Everybody is sort of well, not everybody, but this part of the research or the practice are going very quickly, and also the difference between research and practice also gets smaller and smaller. Now the companies that can actually do AIs are all research-based companies, while on the other hand the researchers also looking for applications, because without applications there won't be a sort of a feedback loop for the data, and it can't develop that algorithm. So I mean, it really, both China and the United States are the leading ones without too much difference, I would say, in terms of talents, in terms of the areas looking at. So, but however, you know, the e-commerce economy in China is extremely vibrant. So in terms of the AI banner designers, that's much more advanced in China, the e-commerce related. So it really still relates to how much data one generates, right? So, but in the United States, we see, you know, Autodesk or some other, and Adobe is developing their own AI machine that's doing a lot of graphic design AIs, and Autodesk doing product design AIs. So those are their expertise. I guess different sort of data generation areas will sort of give two countries different opportunity and advantage.
Thank you.
I have a question for the panel, maybe for Ned also. I recall the intervention of Ned Rossiter about the interaction between race, class, nation, and the platform capitalism, because this interaction allows to think political conflict inside platform capitalism and the relation of political conflict and the production of space. The territorialization of platform capitalism, in fact, is strongly related to what Rossiter calls international division of labor, and what other researchers as Brenner and Mezzadra call the multiplication of labor. This idea of multiplication of labor is also related to the ideas of multiplication of spaces in global capitalism. And this point of multiplication of spaces and the contact of different spaces. So in the point of contact of different spaces, we can observe the emergence of conflict. I think, for example, at the struggle of migrants in Europe, or the struggles in logistics. There are very strong struggle in logistics in Italy, for example. And then I want to ask if there are in China or in Japan some point of the emergence of this conflict. Okay, this is my question. If you can make some example of struggles like logistic struggles or migrant struggles of something in this direction.
Well, we'll start first by an answer from Ned. Are you ready to answer? I think you will have to reactivate the mic on your side. Perfect.
Yeah, good. Thanks very much for the question. Yeah, I mean, of course, Sandro and Brett are people I work very closely with and we dialogue across a lot. But what you've pointed to there too is in the multiplication of labor, of spaces, and of course borders, right? We also see in ways that go beyond political theory as we know it from the likes of Chantal Mouffe, for example, that the idea of the political as a space of struggle and contestation is also multiplied. And it's multiplied across these different points at which we start to see inoperability, protocological failure, infrastructural sabotage, labor strikes. But I would also perhaps add more playfully, following, you know, the fascinating talk earlier from Xin, that we start to see a way in which politics escapes. You know, it escapes the kind of gaze of capture and control from these kind of logistical machines through precisely forms of experimentation that are operating outside of the platform centrism that we've been discussing so far. That's of course not to say that they can't be co-opted. I mean, the logic of capital teaches us, of course, that the periphery is the source of renewal and accumulation. But nonetheless, right, you know, I guess I would also just point quickly to, you know, again, something I alluded to earlier, which was the subaltern or informal kind of modes of knowledge production. A lot, of course, is discussed about, and too much, in my view, is valorized about the work of Shanzhai culture, this kind of copy culture, right? I mean, I thought it was utterly fascinating insofar as effectively what we were seeing there was R&D outsourced to the informal sector, that the big tech companies would then absorb and expropriate into their own tech development, and they didn't have to pay for it. But it arose out of the kind of peculiar circumstances of the locale, the telecommunications, political economy and policy within China, to just take one industry and sector. And within those conditions, you know, there can be incredible inventiveness. How to kind of keep it operating at the level of alternatives, as Xin was proposing through his experiments that they've been undertaking, is of course a really big challenge. I mean, what we see is a catalogue of failure across many experiments in trying to get alternative infrastructures up. Maybe, you know, that's fine. I wouldn't let that put us off at all and think we should indeed unleash, you know, thousands of failures into this world. Nevertheless, we have this other question right around how to sustain political momentum. You know, where does the umbrella movement in Hong Kong go, for instance? How does it kind of reproduce itself beyond the occasion of the summer of 2014? You know, it's extremely difficult because the infrastructures were there, but they were not sustainable infrastructures. The Bluetooth fire chat examples I gave were not ones that could be kind of reproducing a collective archive. So, I mean, I'm meandering away from your question and just perhaps alluding to other kind of problems, but across these terrains we see these, the conflicts are kind of emerging again and again. I have no solution, of course, but we can work out the kind of conditions and how to operate within it.
Thank you very much, Ned. Xin, you wanted to answer the question or suggest a direction?
His explanation sounds perfect, and maybe I couldn't catch your question very well, but I'm trying to focus on the condition of Japan. And in Japan, the most important, you know, social problem is the aging society and losing the population. And now the 126 million and now gradually going down, not gradually, it's rapid. And it's a kind of the showcase for China or the South Korea. And how should we do? And in Japan, the immigrant policy is very strict and extremely domestic. And one way is trying to introduce the immigrants, and the other one is using AI. And these immigrants and AI, these are very clear and simple and sometimes dangerous, but a kind of alternative. And plus one condition is that Japan is an archipelago. All of them are shaky. In this 30 years, percentage of the possibility of 30%, Tokyo megalopolis was attacked by another tsunami or an earthquake, and tons of people are going passed away. Now this kind of social, not today, but not tomorrow, but this kind of nightmare, like common sharing, imagination is sometimes very much connected to the point I suggested now. And these kind of things are connected to each other and make a very, easy to mobilize society also. And that kind of thing is very much connected to the critical point you or others suggested in this conference. And the other point I'd like to, share with you something that it's a kind of the coincidence and kind of fatal or something, but for these 10 years, I have been collaborating with one of the leading AI laboratories in Japan, and we learned each other very much. And what you suggested in the process of the design kind of thing, we should share that kind of thing among designers in the design art school or something like that. And still, we believe that AI is an outer, alien-like object. But if we try to understand roughly, generally, the mechanism of the AI, and try to make it not a white box, but a gray box, and then we can collaborate. And it's not only on the business thing, but educational point is very important thing. And what you visualize is very, multifaceted possibility to discuss in the future.
Well, I think we have time for one last question for this panel before we move on to the break, for you to have a rest and then come back for the plenary session.
我最近刚读到一本书，叫做《从包豪斯到生态物》，从包豪斯的物到生态的物，这样一本书啊，里面记录了这个格罗皮乌斯的晚年的这些项目。那当时到了哈佛之后呢，他买了一块地造房子，就造在那个戴维斯罗的这个瓦尔登湖边上。那么他等于当时是一个另外一种理想，就是说要去设计一种生态的房子。 那么这个书的作者好像非常崇拜这个皮乌斯哈，我读下来以后感觉到这个生态屋的问题非常大，就是格罗皮乌斯的这个理想和包豪斯的理想这种设计理念，建立在一种对于功能、对于一种非常有机的人的功能的这种理解的这种方法论的逻辑，全部错误了，在我们这个时代。所以这个就是包豪斯运动，它的这种设计理想，在我们这个时代的彻底的崩溃。 我认为是个非常有意思的事情，所以也就是说，好像打开了这个局面，就是 AI 介入我们的设计这个事情，变得非常的positive， 就是不会像以前这样，就是你是冲进来破坏了，现在就是说，我觉得是打开这个局面。那这个我们在有一个讨论会上讲到这个问题，就是说，今天我们在 AI 的这个设计介入以后啊，就是说，这个我们一方面说是要设计的让人喜欢。 但是我们很难设计用户对什么样的设计，是需要的，因为这个需要是很难确定，更难确定，因为它被那个淘宝呀、被网上的东西左右了。那这个分析等于说不是我分析这个等于说这个用户的需要，而是我要分析阿里巴巴整个网上他们的供应系统对我们的用户的供应，是告诉他你应该需要什么。那么这样的分析不就是你在机器在分析自己的分析吗？ 那么这个在我们所谓的批判里面 ，critical theory 就是说也火并了，彻底自我崩溃了。那么这个是非常有意思，我觉得这不是个悲剧啊，这是我们作为 critical theory 的这个我们这边的同事们应该庆祝的，就这下子好了，整个就打开啊！我就简单的补充这样一个事情啊，谢谢。
那个，陆老师啊，那讲的非常有启发性，因为 那个我在大概10年前我看了一篇文章，当时对我触动很大的，其实就是有一个科普作家叫 Chris Anderson， 当时是这个《连线》杂志的主编，他就说那个他的文章题目叫《The End of Theory》，理论的终结。他讲的就是说，那个因为现在很多的这个企业都有数据，所以他们可以用全数据样本去做研究，得到全数据的解决方案，不用像过去那样抽样的样本、少量的样本，然后要理论化，然后证明这个理论，从而能够通用。所以正是因为数据的关联，所以能够从因直接到果，中间不用抽象这个过程。所以他说，很多时候很多的场景，这个理论会被重新定义啊。所以这本书这篇文章内容写的不是特别好，但是这个观点我是非常有启发的。所以反过来就是说，在这个过程里边，其实理论本身也是动态的，而我们其实很少去分析理论这个概念是不是 theorization 或者 theory 是不是也可以动态化的理解。其实刚刚顾老师提的就是这样一个视角，我非常那个。然后前段时间呢，那个有一个这个著名投资人叫孙正义啊，他讲了一段话，我给各位分享一下。这个我就是做这个 business person 啊，在这里。他就讲，他说那个1930几年的时候啊，那时候张伯伦那个跟希特勒签完合同以后回来被那个丘吉尔骂，说丘吉尔说你张伯伦在屈辱和和平之间选择了屈辱，但是你还是避免不了战争虽然你选择了屈辱，但是你还是避免不了战争。然后他就讲，我们人类啊，很多时候在做这个思考的时候，特别喜欢政治正确。所以政治正确是什么呢？是怀旧，是过度人文主义，或者说所以你在怀旧和颠覆之间，政治上正确的可以选择怀旧，但你永远也避免不了颠覆。所以他就以这个告诉我们，在过去的10年、20年、30年，我们活着的历史里边看到的所有对未来乐观的、积极的、试图去介入的，最后都会有比较好一点的下场